Hello, my name is Nicholas Stevenson, and I will be presenting on demographics of homelessness in America. For many Americans, it is hard to wrap their head around how large the number is that contains the homeless population in the US. On any given night back in 2018, the total number of people experiencing homelessness was a little over 552,000 people. And with that, to many people's surprise, is that white males took up the largest population of homelessness in America, coming in at 49%. This statistic can be surprising to some, as most would assume that the homeless population would be comprised of minorities, as middle aged white men are not considered a minority in our socioeconomic world. Something else that may surprise people is that both the National Coalition for the Homeless and the National Alliance to End Homelessness states that people of color, particularly African Americans, are a minority group that is particularly overrepresented in the population of homeless people, meaning many people overlook middle aged white men as being the top 49% of homeless people and just assume that African Americans or other minority groups hold the highest percent of homeless people. This is interesting, as most people would assume that when looking at lower income parts of major cities, they are mostly comprised of people in the minority, and would assume that the homeless rates in those geographic areas would be higher. Another important demographic to the homeless population are impoverished families. A little over 171,000 people in families, or 53,000 family households, were identified as homeless, meaning they have no true home for them to stay at and bounce from one shelter to the next. And with that, over 14,000 people in families do not even have the luxury of being in a shelter and live on the streets, whether that may be in a park or in a car or actually on the streets. Families that fall under the identification of homelessness will struggle greatly. Oftentimes, it is just the mother with the father absent, meaning there is only one source of income. The children and families will struggle the most, as oftentimes the potential for dropping out, experiencing emotional trauma, or health issues can impact a child's life. There is also a direct correlation between dropping out and poverty versus graduating and moving out of poverty. And when a child does not have the necessary tools to succeed because of homelessness, it is that much harder to move out of poverty. Another important statistic is what states contain the highest population of homeless people, as there is a direct correlation to states having a higher cost of living and homelessness. Oftentimes, in states like New York, Oregon, California, and Hawaii, individuals or families are spending most of their paycheck on rent or mortgage, which is more than they can really afford, and in return can mean a loss of a home. Although one can study these numbers, whether it's about homeless families, homeless individuals, it is only true upfront experience that can teach someone about the true struggles of what a person or a family really goes through on a day to day basis when being homeless. And in the next slide over, I have two graphs. The one on the left represents 2018 race and ethnicity comparisons, and on the right, it represents 10 states with the highest counts of homelessness. Thank you, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.